This is Getting to Good Enough, a podcast to help you overcome perfectionism so you can do more of what you love. I'm Shannon Wilkinson, a life coach in Portland, Oregon. I'm a recovering perfectionist who's getting better at good enough.
And I'm Janine Adams, a certified professional organizer in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm lucky enough to be naturally good at good enough.
And today we're talking about overcommitting.
Oh boy.
We're talking about overcommitting today.
I feel like I know a little something about that from personal experience. I feel like it, yeah. Yeah, sometimes if I'm new at something, I jump in with both feet. Is that the expression? I think that's the expression.
I think that's the expression, yeah.
Yeah, and I say yes, 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 and I get involved. And that can be good, but it can also be a recipe for stress.
Yeah. Have you done that recently?
Well, when I started my organizing business, which isn't that recent anymore.
No, it's been a while.
It's been a while. 13 years ago I started it, and shortly after I started, some other organizers started forming the St. Louis chapter of what was then called the National Association of Professional Organizers. So when they contacted me, I was so ecstatic because I felt so alone. And so I jumped in and I was on the first board of directors, and stayed on that board for a long time, until 2012, and I took 3 years off, and now I'm back on the board. But then, I was working with NAPO St. Louis, and we had very few people. So, those of us who were involved were doing everything. And then I got involved on the national level, and then in 2010, I accepted a role on the national board of what was then called the National Study Group on Chronic Disorganization, and is now called the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. So that was a big time commitment for 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then in the middle of that, I took a part-time job because my business in the economic downturn wasn't bringing in enough money. So I was working 20 hours a week in a part-time job, running my business full-time on a national board and a chapter board, and all at the same time.
You were a little overcommitted.
Yeah, I'd say so. And probably I didn't do any single thing as well as I would have if I were less committed.
I was going to say, there are a couple of things I'm curious about, what was the impact of all of that? And, those seem like really valuable things to be involved in. And I guess that's probably how you got to that point, that they were interesting things and you wanted to be part of them. And so you said yes. Is that
right? And they seemed like they would be beneficial for my business, and they were. I also went through a big training program during that time too. They were really beneficial for my business, but they did lead to sort of stressful time where I didn't have much in the way of downtime. So I was pretty much working all the time, and I'm not one of these people who can't sit down and take it easy. I'm somebody who's very capable of sitting down and taking it easy. And I didn't get a lot of that for a few years. Now I have a lot more.
Yeah.
So when I got off the ICD board, and off the NAPO St. Louis board, I started saying no for a while and refocused on my business. And I'd been laid off from my part-time job by then too. So everything got a lot easier at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so if you had to do it over again, would you do it differently? How would you choose to commit yourself, knowing what you know now?
Probably, I kind of hate to say it, and I hadn't actually thought about it before you asked me that question, but I probably would have said no to the national board because I didn't realize what a huge time commitment that was going to be. Although, I learned a lot from it. So it was good. But that's probably maybe what I would have done differently. My dedication to my chapter board obviously I'm still dedicated to it because I'm still doing it. So it's something that is really near and dear to my heart still.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that's sort of hard is like, when you're asked to help and you're a person who, generally likes to help people, it's hard to say no.
Yeah, though I've gotten a lot better at it.
Yeah. Well, how do you say no? What do your...
Well, when
do you
it
just
comes,
say no?
I just say no. I get asked a lot to help on the national level for NAPO, and I just say no. I say no. I say I'm on my chapter board, and that's enough right there. But on the local level, obviously I got back on the board. There was a point at which we needed a president, and no one was stepping up. And I had been president for several years in the distant past, so I said, okay, I'll do it. But no, I just say no, sorry. I'm focusing on my business. That's a good one. And it's true.
Right.
Yeah. And no one can, and you can't really quibble with that. You can't say, you shouldn't make more. You shouldn't worry about making money. You should do this volunteer job.
Right. Well, and that's probably a good thing for people to sort of have in their back pockets is an answer that they can give that gives them the space. And even if they aren't sure, or especially if they aren't sure, you don't have to say yes or no when someone asks, but to say something, especially if saying no is hard for you, to give yourself a little space.
Right. I think if it's like a volunteer commitment, it's a great idea to try to get a good a handle on what the time commitment is, if you can, before answering. And then I would think something as simple as, let me give that some thought, and I will get back to you within X amount of time.
I think that is a great way to approach it, because that I see that come up with clients all the time, that people ask them to do something and they want to help and they say yes, and then they realize like that's maybe a little bit more than they can do or do well.
And it's way worse, in my opinion, to say yes and then have to back out of something, or say yes and do something poorly, than it is to say no.
Yeah, that's another really great thing to help people sort of deal with their commitment, is to create that space to really think about it and think about what all of your commitments already are, and then give yourself a buffer. That's the other thing that I know that I tend to not do for myself, and that my clients don't do, is don't give yourself enough of a buffer.
Right. I have a blog post about that somewhere along the way. When my niece was visiting from Australia, she probably wouldn't say she's an overcommitter, but I would. And she says, my mother is always telling me, I need a buffer. So I wrote a blog post about that based on what she was telling me her wise mother advised her. Yeah. Never mind that Miranda still does an incredible amount of stuff in a short period of time. she's in her 20s. Yeah. So when you talk about a buffer, tell me more about what you mean by that.
Well, there's a couple of different ways you can create a buffer, and one is simply by leaving a good portion, and I think like 25% of your time unscheduled. And, that's after you take into account work and family and, getting yourself fed and watered and clothed and groomed and, and then your volunteer stuff and exercise and all of that. But like you take all of those things into account, and then you take whatever 25% of whatever is left and leave that unscheduled, because things always take longer than you think they're going to take.
Right. You need that buffer so you're not going crazy. And
right.
So what jumps to my mind is that white space on a calendar is a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you said 25% of your time unscheduled, and then you said 25% of your unscheduled time should remain unscheduled. I think that's what I heard. Which did you mean?
I think that probably is what I said, but
tell me what you mean.
Well, probably not 25% of your 24 hours in a day.
Okay, that seems a little optimistic to me.
Yeah, because that would be 6 hours a day unscheduled, which I think is probably basically the quote unquote free time that people have every day that they have to jam everything into,
right, when they're not working or
outside
sleeping.
of work.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, when you sort of put in all of the work, sleep, all of those things, like 25% of what's left over, leave that open, and then the time that's left is the time you have for volunteer, the sort of the extra stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And one way to do that, I suppose, might be to add 25% more time to everything you put on your calendar in that non-work, non-sleep time.
Yep. And also, remember to put in travel time and transition time and those sorts of things. And in fact, that's, when we were talking about this topic, that's the first thing that came to mind for me is not so much overcommitting to, external things, to work or volunteer or friends or family or whatever, but overcommitting my own time to myself. And that contributed a lot to lateness. I had a horrible chronic lateness problem for years, and it was mostly because I tried to fit too many things into a small chunk of time.
And so you wouldn't leave the house soon enough to get to your destination, or it was actually, right. And you have appointments. I just remembered. Well, I'm sure you're not late to client appointments, but I was going to say you have appointments inside your house too, since you work over the phone. Right. And I did the same thing where I would try to just get so much done before I leave the house that I would then leave the house later than I wanted to. And for me, the way I have gotten past that, because it's a problem for a professional organizer to get there late, is that I guess I build in a buffer. I purposely overestimate what time I need to leave the house so that I actually get out of the house in time. So I now try to get everywhere 15 minutes early. I rarely do, but at least by trying to get there 15 minutes early, I get there on time. And now I try to beat my team members there, which is a huge challenge because they're early. Generally speaking, they're early people. And I don't want to be the last one there because I'm in charge. Yeah.
Right.
So how did you get... I noticed that you talked about chronic lateness in the past tense. How did you get past it?
Well, that was actually one of my biggest aha moments, was realizing that... if it, say I have a 9 o'clock appointment and it takes 10 minutes to get there. In my head, I would think, I can do stuff up until 10 minutes till and then go. Right. Which, when you look at it on paper and you say it out loud, of course that makes no sense. But that's how I, saw it in my mind. And so I started building in once I park to get to the place, that's going to be 5 minutes. The point at which I get up to head out of the house until I get in the car, that's 5 minutes. So you add 10 minutes on to however much time it takes. And then I give myself a buffer. So basically I leave 15 minutes before I think I need to leave. To give myself plenty of time. And
you actually do it. So you actually get places 15 minutes early?
Well, I usually get there, sometimes I get there 15 minutes early, but it usually actually takes me that amount of time, so I usually get there 5 minutes early.
Right, you need the buffer. Right. Right, exactly. Yeah. I remember I identified, a while back, that I was afraid of getting places early because it felt like a waste of time.
Right.
And I didn't want, because I'm so busy, right? It's probably during that overcommitted time. I didn't want to get somewhere early and have nothing to do. Now that was probably pre-smartphone. So now there's no such, I can always work.
Yeah.
Great, right? But I think I used to like try to bring along some knitting. So I could get some knitting in if I got somewhere early. But I don't think of it that way anymore. And that was another turning point for me on this. I actually had a situation, I blogged about it, I don't remember how long ago, but I was going to give a presentation to an employee group downtown in St. Louis, and I was running late. Hate being late to talks. It's just a bad thing. And I was really stressed out because I was running late, and I turned the wrong way on a one-way street and in downtown St. Louis, and I thought, why are these cars heading toward me in my lane?
Oh no!
And luckily, it was just one block. I was getting to the parking garage, and nobody hit me. But that was like a huge wake-up call. It's like, come on, you almost got killed over this.
I bet.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. So I don't know that we've ever, in all these years of friendship, had this conversation so explicitly about punctuality challenges, but it's nice that we both seem to have gotten past them.
Yeah, it's because I hate that feeling, and it's not. There are plenty of people who are late and don't care that they're late, but being late and not wanting to be late is such a horrible feeling. Oh my God!
Right? Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I was just going to say that when we talked about morning routines recently, I said that I give myself a minimum of 2 hours between when I get up and when I leave the house. And I go through this whole thing. So I decide when to get up by when I have to leave. And I say it's going to take me a half hour to do this, a half hour to do that. And I go back. And I always overestimate. I give myself a half hour to take a shower and get dressed, and it doesn't take that long. Or I give myself a half hour to walk Bix, because you never know with Bix. But sadly, his walks don't usually, sadly for him, his walks don't usually take that long. So I think, building then in that buffer is a great technique, and I had never before today thought about that as an overcommitment issue. It's very interesting to me that I totally agree with you that it is.
Yeah, it's because there's lots of ways that you can become overcommitted, especially if the definition of overcommitted is you're doing more stuff than you have the time to do.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think mostly we think about overcommitting to outside things, to external activities or people, and I think that's where people most commonly get into trouble is if they want to help and someone asks them and it's really hard to say no. Yeah, so... And it can be flattering to be asked to help as well, right? So not only is there a good reason to do it, because it's if someone's asking you to do something that is helping a cause or a person or what have you, but it feels really nice to be asked, and it can be hard to resist those two temptations right there. But knowing what your priorities are and knowing how much time you have available to you should help factor in whether or not an invitation is something that you should say yes to. Yeah, and I think to make that really explicit for yourself, and to really acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you only have so much time and energy, and then choosing where you want to spend that, as opposed to, doing these things and then feeling scattered and then feeling like you're spending your time doing things that aren't that important to you. Right, because when
you overcommit to others, the big loser is your own downtime and your own free time, and typically it's hard. It's hard to, most people who are overcommitting to others aren't carving out time to, knit or whatever it is they hike, whatever it is they enjoy doing.
Yeah, or read. I know, so many people are talking about how they wish they had more time to read.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine not taking time to read. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, because you don't have to have an hour to read, you can have minutes.
Right. Well, and that's, if the other beauty of giving yourself a buffer, you can use that extra time to read if you have extra time when you get somewhere. If you read on a electronic device.
Right, which is another...
Or carry a book with you.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about the Kindle life is not only do I have hundreds of books with me at all times, but I don't even have to have my Kindle with me. All I have to have is my phone, and of course I have my phone.
I know, I love it.
I love it so much. Yeah, so I'm always snatching bits of reading. I keep track of the books I read, and I usually set a goal of 50 books a year, but I'm not going to make it this year. This year I'm only at I'm at 17. I've only read 17 books so far this year, so I'm not going to make 50. But still,
that's
it's just
good.
nice to know that without setting aside any time, because I don't set aside time. I read while I brush my teeth, which somebody told me they thought was odd, but I think it's perfectly normal, except for perhaps these splatters of stuff on my Kindle.
Well, ever since you said that, I've been carrying my Kindle into the bathroom when I brush my teeth at night and get ready for bed, and I read while I'm doing that, and I really enjoy it. It's sort of funny, but it feels like extra fun time.
That's right. The 2 minutes of brushing your teeth. I use an electric toothbrush with a timer on it, and sometimes that 2 minutes feels like forever, but when I'm reading, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't. I just, brush. But I brush for some insane amount of time. I've never timed myself.
So without a timer, you probably brush more than 2 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Is that
definitely.
what you're saying? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if I did a timer, I'd think 2 minutes was done and only 30 seconds would be done. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm always brushing longer than anyone else if I'm brushing with someone else at the same time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've brushed at the same time with you, and I've noticed that. You must enjoy it. That's nice.
It's really, I like a clean grill.
And when, if you're using a manual toothbrush, you do, it takes a while for it to feel like a clean grill. So,
yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wanted to go back to a point that we were making, just to
Did we get distracted?
Topic. That never happens. I don't know what you're saying. We never get distracted, and we never get on a tangent that we go on forever with.
What did you want to get back to? What was the specific point?
Oh, I wanted to talk about the reason why people tend to overcommit is they don't have a good perception of the time they have available.
Right.
And so, you were talking about putting things in your calendar and priorities and stuff. And I think for a lot of people, it really helps if you can make that visible and visual. And, so one way to do that is to, you can do it specifically by, putting appointments in your calendar and blocking out time for different commitments and stuff. But the other way you can do it is in a more general sense is, I learned this technique from Corinne McDonald, who does time management stuff for right brain people, for creatives. Mm-hmm. And she suggested that I make a chart that had that was basically a visual representation of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and however many hours that is. And I think everyone knows by now that neither you nor I can do math in our heads. So it was like a block of, it was like 1 hour blocks. And then to go through and, first thing you do is color in all the blocks that represent the number of hours you sleep in a week. And then color in the blocks for the amount, if you have a job that you go to, the amount of time that you're at your job. And then you fill in blocks for eating and grooming and dressing and, and all those things and the, cleaning your house and like all the things that you do all the time. And then you color those in and then you literally see how much time you have left. And then that's what I was saying, like block out 25% of that as a buffer. And then that's what you have left. And that's the time that you have to, to volunteer, to take on extra work, to help other people out, to read and rest and, but to put all of those things to take care of yourself and your work first, and then see what you have left. Right. And then you get a much better idea of, I haven't done this in a while, but, I remember doing it and being like, oh my God, I have 5 hours a week, basically. Mm-hmm. Like, how do I want to spend what is most important to me? If I have 5 hours a week, how do I want to spend that time?
Right. That's a great idea. And it really puts you in the driver's seat, right? It really gives you control.
Yeah.
Rather than just making on the fly decisions about how you're going to spend your time.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to envision what you're describing. And so just so I can envision it, is it the kind of thing where you have 8 columns, 7 of which are the days of the week, and then the leftmost column is the hours of the day, and each is an hour? I mean, is that how it is with blocks that you fill in, or is it just whatever 24 times 7 is number of blocks, and you're just in a square, and you're just filling them in?
I can't remember how I did it. I did like a spreadsheet that was basically blocks, and I think I did like 7 columns across and 24 rows.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
But I didn't do it like by the day. Like I didn't put in like 8 hours a day sleeping. I put in like, 8 times 7 and then that many blocks. So it doesn't really matter how you organize the blocks as long as there are. I'm just going to open up my calendar if I can here. I'm using my left hand. So, it has 168 blocks in it.
Representing the 168 hours in a week.
Right.
Got it. And so the columns aren't representing the days of the week in your... I realize that we don't need to get perfectionistic on how to do this, but I'm just trying to visualize.
No. And I bet I actually still have my chart. So maybe I can make a PDF of it and we can put a link to it in the show notes.
Oh,
so if
that would
people
be great.
Want to do this themselves.
I was going to suggest that, but I didn't want to suggest it without asking you, so that's great.
Yeah, well, so we will make a chart, PDF chart that people can print out and do themselves.
And maybe we could put a sample one, filled out one of yours. Okay,
mine.
Or of mine. Right.
Thanks for volunteering me.
Right. No, we can do mine. But that's great. I love that idea. I think that's like the overcommitment antidote.
Yeah, well, because, I think that's such a huge problem is we don't really know how much time we have. Like, you think like, oh, I sleep 8 hours, I work 8 hours, I have 8 hours. But you don't.
Right.
It's useful to think about it, what's important to you, and to set those priorities. And I've heard different ideas about this, like if you have young kids, maybe your priority is to help out at school, or, maybe your priority is a particular political issue, or, perhaps your priority when you were talking about when you were starting your business is, to build your business. So, but think about what's your primary objective, and how can you use that extra time you have to support, your top one or two priorities. So that, if your top priority is building your business, and you keep getting sucked into political things, you're not going to feel really good about that. It's going to feel stressful.
Exactly. I think that's a great idea. Knowing those, getting in touch with those priorities. It's important to you. That's a recurring theme on this podcast, isn't it?
Yep.
Knowing what's important to you. And it certainly fits in here.
Well, and I think that's how you get out of, the whole problem with being a perfectionist is you want to do everything all the time the right way. Mm-hmm. And that's how perfectionists end up getting overcommitted. So, coming back to your priorities, what really matters to you, that helps you get in the good enough frame of mind.
Right. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to talk about with the overcommitting?
No, I feel like we've talked. I think we've covered it nicely. I did write down one takeaway before we started talking, which was suggesting that people learn how to say no to requests, because that's a really valuable skill, being able to say no. And if you can't, if your heart isn't in it, if you can't commit with your heart, then you're not doing anybody any favors by saying yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I would just add to that that committing to something, like you said, committing with your heart is really important. And then knowing that you actually have the time available is the second part of that. Yeah. You can something can feel really important to you, and you can still not have the time to really be present for that commitment.
Right.
And it's better for everyone if you can recognize that up front.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. All right. So I think that wraps up another episode of Getting to Good Enough. If you are enjoying this podcast, if you enjoy listening to us, it would really mean a lot to us if you would share the podcast with a friend, if you take a minute to provide a review or rate us wherever you get your podcasts, on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you go. And also, we will soon have our first Q&A on the fives. So please give us a call at 413-424-GTGE. That's 4843. And leave a voicemail with your question, your comment, feedback, an experience you had trying one of the things we've talked about.
We'd love to hear your voice and and answer your question in the episode.
Yes, definitely. And I think we have a few really great resources that you're going to put in the show notes, Janine, on saying no. Mm-hmm. And so definitely check out the show notes. And
thanks for listening.
Yes, this is Shannon Wilkinson in Portland, Oregon. Yeah.
This is Janine Adams in St. Louis, and I was just going to comment that we reached 10,000 downloads for the podcast the other day. So we appreciate everybody downloading.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for listening, and we hope that good enough is